Hello, everyone. Is there anyone who hasn't yet signed in? We're going to get started here. Hello. You're welcome. Hello. We're going to get started. We have Mildred joining us from the school committee, and she's going to get us started with the meeting today, so we're all on the same page. I'm going to just make sure everyone has a copy of the agenda. All right. In the interest of time, we're going to skip through the first couple of slides just to make sure that we're able to do this. So in the room, we have Eric, who you've met. I'm Gabriela Steitler. I'm with Great Schools Partnership. I've been participating via Zoom. I'm here for this meeting, for the community forums, and then to debrief those community forums after. So that's my role for this. And then we have Mildred, who's from the school committee, and she's going to help us really make sure that we're all on the same page. There have been questions about, like, what are our big goals? What is it that we're hoping to do? And so I just want to make sure we're able to all figure out what those priorities are so we can make sure that time is really well spent.
Is that the only person on Zoom? Because I know Ellen's on Zoom, and she's part of the...
I think the way it is right now is you can only see one of the faces, so... But we have more people there, I think, as well.
Who is the person that's assisting us?
So everybody on Zoom, Ira is there to assist you. If you need anything, you can drop it in the chat. Ira's going to help you out there. All right, I'm going to just do this really quickly because it does help me get a sense for who's in the room. Raise your hand if you work in Holyoke Public Schools. All right, we've got some people. If you worked in Holyoke Public Schools, there we go, Barbara. All right. Raise your hand if you have children who attend school in Holyoke Public Schools. All right, so we have some parents in the mix. Raise your hand if you attended Holyoke Public Schools. All right, we've got some community members here. Raise your hand if you live in the Holyoke community. All right. Christine, I'm curious. All right, raise your hand if you believe in the power and importance of public education. Yeah, okay. Finally, raise your hand if you believe that children are sacred and entitled to schools where they feel challenged, supported, and can thrive. All right, yes. Is that a trick question?
Sacred, I feel.
Yeah. Important. Yes. Important. All right. Okay, so for today's outcomes, we have two big goals today. We're going to understand the priorities. There are two big goals for this advisory team. And so we're going to make sure that we're all on the same page about what those two goals are. And then we have an upcoming community forum, and it is so important that we get feedback from this group so that those meetings are really well designed for the community so that we get the information that we need to. So those are the two big priorities that we have for today. And then I have sticky notes. I am going to make sure if you have other questions, if there's anything else that you need, to provide that information to Eric and I so that we can make sure that we're meeting your needs as well in this space. Yes?
Mildred's question earlier, could I use a microphone? Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't hear you if you don't use the microphone.
I'm wondering if the Zoom can be changed to gallery view even though they're screen sharing, because the people that are on Zoom are part of our team, and it's hard if we don't even know who's there, we can't see each other's faces, and then we just know who else we're talking to.
Is this working? Oh, great.
That's going to work on that his end.
All right. Thank you so much, Anna. That's such a good recommendation. All right. I have another sticky note there. Okay. So these are the sort of big bucket agenda items. We're going to open and close we'll do an opening, which we've kind of done. We're going to close the loop so we can circle back on the other previous meetings, what we're doing with the information that was gathered there so you feel the continuity. For agreements, we have what we need from some folks just in terms of this. I'm going to state my bias here. I really like to get things done. Time is really valuable. You all are volunteering your time, so I want to make sure that we're able to use that really well. But if you have questions or need to speak up, like raise your hand, feel free to slow me down. I'm going to move at a fast pace, but but I want to honor your questions, and if you need us to pause a little. Does anyone have anything else that they really need to make sure that we're not losing sight of as we're moving through the agenda today? Okay, and I'm going to really honor your time. I know we started a little bit late, but we will make sure that we end on time today. But I will have my email address, so if you need to reach out, get in touch with me about anything, there'll be space after this where you can provide that feedback too. All right, then we're going to go review the immediate priorities with Mildred. Thank you so much. She just flew in. She's here. She's going to help us talk through from the school committee perspective what exactly those goals are. And then we're going to look, I have a draft agenda for the community forum, and I want to walk through it with you logistically what I was thinking so I can get your feedback on that. And then there are some focus questions that Mildred recommended that we have drafted, but I want to get your feedback on those questions too. So those are the two big pieces for the meeting here. And then we'll have a third meeting after the community forums. In that meeting, we're going to take all of the information that's been gathered, we'll analyze it together, and then we'll make recommendations to the school committee based on the information that we have. So that will be the third meeting. And then after we do the community forum planning, we'll close out and we'll go to the next steps. So we'll talk a little bit about where we go from here. So that's a quick overview of the agenda. All right, I'm going to skip over that a little bit. All right, so Mildred, I think this is maybe where you can kind of come up and talk about some of those big things. I did add some slides here. These aren't as pretty as the other slides, but you can see them. All right, so Mildred, here this is. So Mildred has graciously volunteered to come in today and from the school committee perspective, state and share with us just really clearly what are the two big priorities and purposes behind this advisory team. So I'm going to give this to you, Mildred.
Thank you. So I'm just going to give you a little brief history as to how we got to where we are today. So in January, we elected a new vice chair, and so then I became the chair of the local control subcommittee and was informed that the community advisory team would fall under that because it's part of the capacity building plan. So I'm like, great. So I went back and looked at the videos of the two meetings originally that you had because I came to your third one. And I saw that much of the focus was on the superintendent hiring process. But within our capacity building plan, there was something else that is actually going to be needed already, because technically from November to April, that's where the evidence collection was supposed to happen. The superintendent / receiver needed to provide the school committee with one professional practice goal. He had to provide us with a student learning goal and 2 to 4 district improvement goals. And from that, it was that the community advisory team was going to be assisting the school committee in gathering that evidence. So that evidence really would be a focus on his professional practice goal, which is based off of what he said, which is strengthen communication with stakeholders, work, and strategic priorities. But it also said that if when you're out there doing this collection of information, if you see something else that's missing, that you would present that to the school committee, as this is something that we need to look further into, because then when we do the new evaluation for the following year, those are things that we could add into the evaluation process and what we're going to be looking at. So like I said, your focus was really mainly at the beginning on the superintendent hiring. What are the qualities that you want to look for in the next superintendent? And as you are all aware, we decided to hire Mr. Anthony Soto in an interim position for 1 year, so that this way there is no constant transition, which can then, especially since we are in, how would I say it? It's like a trial, because we are going to be the first ones getting out of receivership. And with that, we are waiting to hear if there's going to be any exit assurances that the state may impose on us stating this is what needs to happen, and this is where we're expecting to see.
I just want to, what kind of,
Do I have to turn this one
what kind of assurances would they be looking for? What kinds of things? I mean, just off the top of your head. I'm not asking for a commitment on this.
Yeah. We're not sure what they could ask. I mean, they could ask anything. They could say that we have to, I don't know, it could be the turnaround plan, that we have to keep that for a certain amount of time. I mean, there's so many things that the state could turn around and say, but many are aware that the interim commissioner, Russell Johnston is no longer in that position. It is Secretary Tutwiler, who is now also in that role as interim until they hire someone. So I've already sent the email out along with the vice chair of the school committee, requesting that we hopefully have that meeting for now in April. I think the sooner the better, but the expectation is that the exit assurances are there. It's not going to come to the local control subcommittee. It was requested that we want it to the full committee, and it's going to be a special meeting where that's all we're going to talk about. No date yet. They are trying, Desi's trying to schedule and find the right date because we did ask that it has to be in person. It's not going to be a Zoom.
Will that be an open meeting?
Oh yeah, it's going to be a special meeting of the school committee. It's going to be an open meeting. We have also talked about having the dean cafeteria open as well, and also allowing if people want to sign up for public comment. So all that is going to be just like a regular meeting. We're going to do the same thing for just that one item. So now I just want to make sure that everybody's clear in what the role of the community advisory team is. And as well, don't think that this is just for this capacity building plan. This is something that the school committee can continue to implement year after year, because I really think what's important is that community building and having stakeholders in the community a part of those decisions, and getting feedback as well from families, businesses, whomever has a stake in the education of our children, including the students. Any other questions? Okay. I'm just going to sit back there, continue listening in case there's anything else, or if there's any comments that someone may like to share.
All right, so I'm just going to summarize, Mildred, what I heard you say. I heard you say that the community advisory team is going to work. We've done some work already on the qualities, characteristics, and what we're hoping to see in a superintendent as that process is going. We've gathered that information. One of the other things that we need to get information on are some of the goals and priorities here, where we need stakeholder input about quality assurances. And then as we're having those forums, we can gather other information from the community that might help us make recommendations back to the school committee. I included this in the agenda. I'm going to just review this because I actually, in the meetings that I've been to, I heard a number of priorities that came up that I actually do think are reflected in some of those goals, and I just want to share back what I'm seeing here. So if we look, these are those superintendent goals right now that feedback is being collected on. So the first one is a student learning goal on beginning of year STAR evaluation data, and that's going to be reflected in student performance and student outcomes. So that's one of the goals there. There were 4 district improvement goals that were set. Those goals are on implementation of best practice for early literacy, as evidenced through walkthroughs, 80% delivering high-quality lessons as measured through the walkthrough tool, a comprehensive 4-point decrease in chronic absenteeism as measured by absenteeism rates. I hear that that is a big thought that a lot of people are thinking on right now, so we will actually see that when that data is rolled out at the end, how we've done on that goal, what the progress is on that goal, and that might help us make some next steps and determinations there. And then the final goal here, which is also something that I heard come up in this committee and in some of those meetings, school-wide systems to promote student connection and positive relationships as measured by the MTSS heat map and a reduction in suspensions.
Gabriella,
Yes.
from chat, Ellie is asking to make sure that people know what those acronyms are, STAR, EL, and MTSS.
Yes. So the STAR evaluation, and maybe somebody actually in district can explain that. Anna, can you explain that? So here, I'll pass. Oh, Eric's going to pass that over. Thanks, Anna.
STAR is a test, reading and math, given to students at all grade levels. I think it's 3 times a year to measure their progress. EL is English language, so they must be looking at the reading and the writing one. But I think they're looking at everybody. I think they're looking at English language for everybody in that case. I don't think they would just be measuring the English learners.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then MTSS. Oh.
Early literacy.
Yeah. So that acronym is confusing because it means several different things. I think you're right, early literacy.
I thought it was expeditionary learning, so.
Oh. So that's one piece of feedback,
Okay.
clarify. The MTSS is the multi-tiered systems, support systems that the district began implementing this year. Each school has an MTSS team, and it's a multi-tiered approach to provide students with general interventions, SEL supports, student support rooms. There's many levels.
And one more comment from chat from Emma, looking for clarification. Did you say these points were what the committee brought forward or what was already in place via the turnaround plan?
Mildred's going to answer that question.
So according to the community capacity. According to the capacity building plan, the receiver had to provide his own goals. And so one had to be a professional practice goal, his own personal professional practice goal. Another one had to be a student goal, student focused. And the last set had to be between 2 and 4 that was district focused. So it was part of, this is what he has to do, this is what the Holyoke School Committee has to do, and this is when the expectation is due.
Thanks.
Any other questions, Ira, from people virtually?
Nope.
Okay,
All
great.
set, thank you.
Does anyone in person have any questions? Thank you for the check on acronyms. Go ahead. Beginning of year, yeah, boy. Which is interesting, right? All right, so if there are any other, so these are the goals that were set. In these goals here on this screen, there are metrics in place where we'll be able to see what that data looks like. We could actually ask, maybe Mildred, I'm sure, could share that out. School committee members can share that out as we go through that process. But the goal here, and this actually came up from this committee as well, what is the communication? What is the cohesive communication? What does the engagement look like for the community? So that was the personal practice goal here. With stakeholders. And so I think that this is one where we can really reach out and collect some of that information. What communication is going out? Who is communicating with families and community members about what's happening in the school? Where are there opportunities for clearer communication? And then the one thing I always say when I think about communication is it's not just what we put out, it's about what we take in. So what are the opportunities for the second part, and arguably the most important part of communication, which is our ability to listen to each other, right? So that's one of the things that when I was thinking, we have this opportunity to do these community forums and to collect some of this information and other information from folks in the community that we can then use to inform some of the recommendations that we bring back to Mildred and that committee. Does anybody have questions about this first part? Go ahead, Hannah.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly. So we have the community forums to understand how is he doing toward this goal? Like, how do people feel like, am I getting updates? Am I being informed?
Mildred's going to answer that.
So it's going to be a twofold, right? Because also the job was to really find out what does the community want to see in the next superintendent. So let's look at this one professional practice goal that he has: strengthen communication with stakeholders. You're going to hear more than likely from the community that they want an individual that's able to communicate, not only by language, but it could also be that they want to be more informed of things that are happening within the district, more proactive than reactive. So then at that same time, you could be saying, well, where are we at right now? Do you feel that you are receiving? And if you are, how are you receiving that information? If you're not, then what other form do you think might be useful? So it's really, you're kind of killing two birds with one stone on that one.
And as Gabriella, just turn that off for 1 sec, because when both of them on, we get the feedback. And as Gabriella pointed out, in some of the information that we've done in the gatherings here already, we're going to be able to distill that right out and have those as guidance pieces in what we're talking about as well. So we'll have some information from this committee that we can share over to the community events and be able to use that information.
So based on the information, so we're just focusing on this first one, right? Because these others, we don't really have, I'm thinking about like the student goal and the district improvement goals. We don't really have that information. Okay, so our entire community forums are just focused on the professional practice?
I think it's sort of like a both and, like Mildred was saying. I think we're going to gather information about this first question. But I think, and this is where I really want your input, so we can collect information on this goal here, but where I really want your input as we move forward is this is an opportunity for us to collect other information that can inform recommendations from this committee. So I think there's an opportunity there to look at that, and Mildred has some suggestions.
Yeah, so it's not only that, but even you may come around and say, well, what stakeholders are missing? And that's now a feedback back. It could also be when they're talking, people start talking about their own students or their own children and what they're lacking or whatever. Then that's information that you may say, okay, the community wants to know, well, what are we doing in this aspect? And that's nothing that we're looking at right now, but it's something that we can add on or bring for the next evaluation, or even in the next person that we're hiring. What do they feel about, let's just say, math literacy, right? Financial literacy. Then that's something that could be also recommended from the community advisory team, that there was a lot of focus from families, talking about what are we doing to prepare our children when in financial literacy.
Ira, is there a comment in the chat to share?
There is from Emma. Depending on the state's return with exit assurances, could community input potentially be limited if they come back with keeping most of the turnaround plan?
People are saying yes to that. I think there's the big question mark, like we just don't know. Right? And so right now the plan should be, let's gather the information that we can, and then we'll have that, and we'll figure out, like, once we know more information, where it goes next. I wish I had all of the many answers. Anna has another question.
I'm curious, is this the receiver's goal just for this school year or also for next year?
Just for this year.
So he could change his goal next year. The future superintendent could have different goals. So as far as the goal goes, we're really just looking at how the school committee will evaluate his performance this year. but it has no bearing on.
I think there's an opportunity though for this committee to make, based on the information that we see, recommendations. You won't be prescribing, but you can say, based on what we heard, we recommend X, Y, and Z. Now this is only going to be a fraction of the puzzle, right? This will be the community forum, like fraction of the puzzle. You're going to see other pieces of data too. But I think we really should use this as an opportunity not just to reflect on these goals, but Mildred was saying this when we met earlier, but to also think about, so what does this mean about implications and what we think might be a community next step.
Okay. I like these better because to focus on those goals when he's already got the job next year and how we're going to measure him, I don't know, seems less important than just learning what people want in the person who will hold the role in the future.
Yeah, so one of the things, and this is still working, right? Okay. So one of the things that I did is after meeting with Mildred, I kind of teased out, and we're going to talk about this. I think we're maybe ready to pivot into conversation about the forums itself because we're starting to talk about these questions a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to overview the next part of the agenda, and if you have other questions that come up, feel free to just keep asking those questions, but I want to make sure that we're able to talk about that community forum to get input on that, and maybe some of this will help.
We have one comment.
Go ahead, Ira.
Ellie says that just like educators, the superintendent creates annual goals and is reviewed annually.
Yeah. And the community input for that particular communication goal is crucial, right? Because there's not necessarily another place where that data on communication and effective communication is being collected. Okay, so Eric, can I ask you to do me a huge favor? In that, does somebody have that, like, what are those folders called that had the sign-in sheet on it? I have drafts of the community forum agenda in here that I'm gonna pass out so you can look at it, just so that you can get a sense for what we were thinking. And there's also a really small copy on the screen, if you have your glasses and can see. I'm gonna review some of the logistical details for the community forum. We're gonna look at some suggested questions for that, and then there's input. Like if we have other better questions that we wanna ask, like there will be an opportunity for that as well. And then what I'm gonna do is collect feedback from this group so that I can refine the questions and the agendas, and then I'll share those back out with you. And if you see something else, or if you need a little more time to think on it, there's not a rush, but I wanna make sure I give you enough time to think about this to give input. So as of right now, per Mildred's recommendation, what we were thinking is we're gonna have 2 concurrent community forums, one at the high school. I'm not sure, Mildred had recommended maybe Enlace as the location for the second community forum.
We've been trading messages there, but the high school is set for April 22nd. I'm hoping to set that up for the same date. That's the next conversation. Should I say that again with the mic? The high school I spoke to, I finally got to the right person, and it's April 22nd at the cafe there. In terms of the other location, we're back and forth on messages. I just don't have a final answer.
I see, maybe, did you have something to say?
We need a microphone, if not, it's not going on record. Yeah. So whoever holds the microphone.
I'm just wondering, because that is school vacation week, and I'm just wondering how big of a turnout you're going to get, because I know I can't be there.
Yeah.
I just want to propose that if you need another place, you can use Kelly School. We have 2 big monitors. Our cafeteria can hold a lot of people also. So, and that's a central location for community events.
Okay, so that, Eric, if we have that, then we have potentially 2 locations. Thank you so much, I really appreciate that. 2 locations for that. The feedback on the date is really good. Mildred, I know we went back and forth on if it is worth it to do it during spring break. I'm wondering, I'm seeing some people kind of like, we're not gonna get the engagement that we want from this date. Let's do just like a quick, like, we're gonna do a fist of 5. 5, this is a terrible idea. If we do it during break, we're gonna have low turnout. 0 is like, I think this is going to be great. We'll have great turnout no matter what. So, and then anywhere in between. So a 3 is like, it's probably fine. So what are we thinking? 5 is like terrible. Fist is like, great. Okay, so I'm seeing like a 4, 5, 3, 4, 5 from people. All right, so that's worth us considering if we're thinking turnout might be low for this state. Yep, so Emma's saying 5. I see you, Emma. You said 5 too. All right, so that's something Eric, Mildred, and I will reconvene about that date to see if maybe there's another alternative there. Okay, for these meetings, we're going to have food provided and childcare provided. So those are things that Eric is working on now logistically. We were thinking to, go ahead.
Don't forget live interpretation. That should be the first thing.
Interpretation? Yeah. Eric is on that too. Thank you. All right. So then we'll have here live interpretation. Ellie's seconding that. I like it when they pop up and I see it. All right. So we have 2 goals for that, is to collect the community input about receivership. And then the other goal that I was thinking, kind of based on some of the feedback that you were saying, but also some of the conversations that Mildred was having, to listen to community perspectives on what else might be a priority. So it's not just, we don't want to limit we want the community input on communication, but we don't want to limit it to just that, right? This is an opportunity. So to do that, we would have community and connections at the beginning from 5:30 to like 6. Then we'll do a brief opening at the beginning. What I was thinking to collect input, it's always tough. We don't know turnout, right? But you want small groups where you can listen to everybody. What we don't want is to have people excluded from the process. So what I was thinking is, if we have enough folks from this committee who are able to kind of come help, what we could do is have sections where we have tables set up, where we have the focus questions, and the folks in this committee are able to scribe those answers to take it. We can do it on poster paper, to write all those things down for the 3 focus questions that we have. So that would be a group of about 5 to 7 people. One of the folks in this group would be helping to facilitate and answer those questions, write down the answers, and then we do it for each of the 3 questions. We do it on poster paper. And then at the end of that time, we put the poster paper up on the walls, and we have people walk around, check, star, interact with the ones that they really, really stand out to them. All right, that way we're able to hear from everybody, but then people are also able to see what other groups put down and selected for those. And then we have a running record of everything that we can bring back to this group, and we can look at all of that together so it's documented so we can see it. We're hearing from everybody that's there, and we have the information for those questions. Then we would close and provide an opportunity sort of for feedback and input. So this is it's just like a loose skeleton of what I was thinking for that, and I've seen it work in a variety of different community forums, but I think the most important thing is making sure we hear from everybody who shows up, right? Okay, so that's the overview of this. Logistical details, outcomes. Where I really need some help from you all is on those focus questions. The questions that we ask are the most important part. This is such a good opportunity to get community input. Asking the right questions could provide absolutely invaluable information, okay? So this is me being like a nerdy teacher planner here. What I was thinking that we could do, I put posters up around the room and I have markers. If you could kind of clump up in groups of 3 and talk about in this, what do you like about the structure of the agenda? What would make this agenda even better? And then I'm gonna put here, I just drafted out, Mildred and Eric and I talked and we threw out like spaghetti on the wall for some of these questions. The first one gets at the goal, and you see there are some follow-up questions in here for the goal. And then these are questions that I've asked before in community events that are open-ended, so people really can provide sort of open-ended responses around what are some things that are going really well, What are some things that we can do better in Holyoke Public Schools? And so those are the 3 questions. These are not set in stone. These are just drafts for you to react to. So, Barbara.
Thank you.
She's so good. She knew to wait for the mic.
Yeah. Questions 2 and 3 we brought up in the first or the second meeting, I believe, and we all have a listing of what those things are. So, do you want more, the same, what?
Yeah, so I think we have that from you all in this room and in this space, but I'm thinking the community forum is an opportunity to collect that information more broadly from people in the community, right? So it would be their questions that you would then be asking to them. And I do have all of that documented too, and all of the notations for that, and we are gonna use that when we look at our reflections and recommendations as well. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Just to reiterate, so the point of this is to get information about the superintendent. So shouldn't the questions be more about the because if you ask me about communication at the school, I'm going to immediately think about my own children and what I get from the school. And I feel like what the superintendent does is pretty high, like
superintendent level communication.
I just feel like, I mean, I think if we, and even some of the questions about like what's going well in Holyoke Public Schools, that's too far removed from the work of the superintendent. I think we need to be a lot more pointed about specifics, if that is the point of this, right? And that's why I'm just like reiterating, is that the point of this? To figure out what does the community think about the superintendent, and what would we like in a future
Mildred, would you say that that's sort of the goal for this, or gets more specific? What are you thinking?
So for me, he also has to hold other people accountable. So he has his own administrative team that he has to hold accountable. So if I'm not getting communications from the school and I've gone through the chain of command, I'm coming to you next. Now, what are you going to do? So your job might be to then look at the process that's happening. Where is it that we're falling through? So now his job would be to hold accountable the one who leads then in that position. So families, at the end of the day, communication is also, his thing is, we are getting out to the families what is happening in the district, what was everything like, quarterly updates, the newsletter and social media content, what's happening in the schools, bi-weekly communication to the school community. Some of the things was that I kept seeing on Facebook at one point. I didn't know that there was a fight at the school. Why are there 15 cop cars, in front of the school? Another student was followed by some, nobody told me anything, right? So there's a process, a lack of process, a lack of communication. At the end of the day, he's still the one leading the district, so he has to make sure that whatever process it is for them to communicate out, it's being followed, so that the perception of what the community thinks is happening doesn't get to that level.
I feel I'm a little lost because I thought that what we were trying to do, it was like focus on the new superintendent, and my question was like, if we want, if that was our purpose to be here, so and we want feedback from the community, so why there's no questions about what are some of the characteristics that we want in the new superintendent, because I mean, I don't think we're representing Holyoke in here. I mean, I think we want to hear from the community, and I think these events are the perfect one to get feedback of what is it, because in reality, I mean, I work for Holyoke Public School, but I want the community to, I want to hear what the community wants, because at the end of it, we are public servant, and we have to have that connection between the community with the superintendent. So
there's somebody else behind.
Yeah, hi. My name is Miguel, and I just want to touch up a little bit on what Mr. Vicente said. I also did work for the Holyoke Public Schools myself, and I think the communication within the community and the families and students that we're serving, I think we're lacking like a lot when it comes down to that. I don't think we're being realistic of what's really happening behind closed doors, and we got to be very careful with that kind of stuff, especially with this generation of kids that students that we're dealing with nowadays. Another thing is the MTSS heat map that we talked about, that we were talking about, and you don't have to bring it back. I think what we're lacking on that is that in order for something like that to work, the team that you got to have around our students has to be a very solid team, because one of the things that the district, I feel, is lacking, and is lacking in a way that people don't see it unless you have worked behind these closed doors, and I don't want to put myself on the spot, is the data collection. So the data collection that we're collecting on students that either they're getting suspended or not suspended is the way we're managing the situations. And yeah, of course we don't want to suspend students, but there has to be those boundaries that we have to have that kind of like space and solutions for a lot of things. And when it comes down to the MTSS, I don't think, because I'm also a parent, and my concern as a parent is that, okay, I'm not the best parent in the world, but my child is going into middle school next year, and she's going to be exposed to things that we have never showed and she's never seen in front of us, or that we have never shown to her or speak to her or anything about. And I can speak about this because I just recently finished working for a middle school, and I can speak about this. So there's a lot of things that my kid is going to be exposed to that parents are not aware of what's going on behind these closed doors. And we want to keep talking about, we're going to get the community involved, but I don't think that we're getting enough people in the community involved for them to know what's really going on behind our doors. And we're talking about numbers that I feel are not the right numbers that we're presenting to the community. As a worker and as a parent, I can honestly say that there's a lot more that's going on behind closed doors than what we're talking about. And talking about the next superintendent, I hope that the next one we get communicates a lot more with the community. That's what I gotta say.
Yeah. Barbara, you have something you want to say? Thank you, Miguel, so much. And I'm going to just say this. I'm a parent, and I will just say we do the best that we can, right? And we hope to do better. Like, we're always hoping to build on those foundational pieces, but I appreciate your vulnerability there. Barbara.
I think what becomes important is the level of transparency. There are some things that you need to be careful about what comes out. But on the other hand, parents are the people that we are serving their children. Well, teachers and administrators are serving those people, and they have a right to know certain things. And I think, as you pointed out, some of these things they're just not being communicated to the community. And that, I think, is important for the superintendent to understand.
I think this has been really helpful. There's one more comment, and I'm gonna give you space in 1 minute, but one thing I'm gonna say, we've surfaced a couple things I'm gonna summarize. One is like a piece on data, that we maybe like communication and transparency around data. Maybe we wanna get at that in this first question a little more. I think there's something around that we were just talking about, making sure, are these open enough to get feedback, but also specific enough so that it gives us superintendent something to think about. But we do want to keep it open enough so, like, if a school in particular isn't doing an effective job of communicating with families, or I'm a parent, if I get 17 negative points of contact and not a single positive point of contact about my child, that's a problem, and the superintendent does need to know about that and think about what they can do about it, right? Like, so I think that one of the things, this is personal experience, I'm not Holyoke parent, but I do think that those ratios matter, right? Because that's just, if it's 17 negative points of communication and not a single positive one, and that's what I'm getting, imagine what that child is getting day to day in classrooms, right? So what I would just say is, when we're thinking about these things, we're going to have some time on these focus questions, and then I'm going to say, Ira, it would be great if you could kind of capture those things for the people who are there virtually so that we can make sure we have that. There's one person online, I think, that has a comment, and then one more person here in person that has a comment. But then I want to make sure you go up to these posters, put those comments on the posters so that we can collect it, you can talk about it, and you can, if you have questions that you want to redraft or suggestions, I'll leave these up, and you can put some proposed language or what might make these questions stronger on these papers so that I threw spaghetti on the wall so we could react to it. I want what you think is going to be right for your community. So I want to make sure that you get to put that approval on it. Go ahead.
Yeah, my comment is more a suggestion for the list. Will be just for us to figure it out what other question can be put in there that are more not general but are touching the points that we are presenting today. Because those are some good questions, but I feel that there is a need that needs to be fulfilled with this forum. And I think if we included those questions, then family or the people that are coming are gonna be like, but they didn't ask about this. So we have to put some other questions that touch like the insecurities, the concerns, the doubts that the people has, plus those questions that we had there. And then we're gonna be like complete in what we're looking for.
That's such a good suggestion. So not just changing these questions, but maybe adding to these questions.
Maybe 3 more questions that include.
Yeah, 3 or 4 more questions that are included. Ira, is there
Two
some?
comments online.
Go ahead, Ira.
The first is just a clarification on what, in question number 3, what is meant by we? Who is the we?
Holyoke Public Schools, I think, is the we. But you can feel free to modify that language. Yeah, good question.
And then there was a comment about or needing to have a question about qualities, characteristics, and the education for the next superintendent.
That's excellent. And that was, I think, brought up in here as well. I heard that. Okay, so I'm going to look at time. This is where it's 5:04. We have until, what time do we have until, Eric? 5:30. So let's do 15 minutes at posters. So pick a poster. I have markers. You're going to answer. I kind of just wrote down what's working about this agenda, what would be even better about this. And then at the bottom, questions, if you want to refine them, any comments that you have, anything else that you can just add to those posters. And if you need more poster paper, I have more poster paper. Ellie has a question about not speaking up to the group. Ira? Is it just?
I think that anybody online should be able to speak to the group, right?
They should be.
So can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So I believe question 1, I don't think you need the do you feel like. I think it's just, are you getting the communication you need? I think, what is going well and what can be done better. I think I think being more direct with the questions. I just wanted to acknowledge Mr. Vicente. I also feel as though we're kind of straying away in some ways from the point of trying to get those qualities and characteristics, because we are going to be doing a search very soon. And this group was supposed to help the school committee help, figure out what are we looking for that superintendent, our next superintendent. And I know I missed one, and I wasn't on the emails until recently, so I'm not sure if we've pulled together anything that can actually be shared with the school committee yet about that. So those are just my points. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. I'm going to let Eric answer that, and then we're going to jump into these posters.
I went to a meeting of the I don't remember what the name of your group is, local control group, and we spoke about that, and I gave them information from the previous meeting, so they have a good portion of the comments and the discussion that we had already. I think the piece that'll link all this together is the discussions we're going to have here and at the forum at the forums are going to inform the process for superintendent, both this year and for next year, because we're going to have information, not just what comes from the superintendent, but what comes from the residents. So all that information will be of great use and great information in terms of informing the process of searching as well. So I think that it's going to actually work out well in terms of course, we're going to get feedback about the school district. When people start talking, they're going to talk about the schools, and then they're going to talk about the superintendent some. So of course, and we'll be able to share that data as well. So I think we're going to be able to throw in a wide enough net to be able to get the information that is needed to both inform the search and provide the type of information that needs to come forward. And more people who can speak directly to what they see as the biggest challenges is really the best we can do with all this. So I appreciate as well coming forward and talking about the challenges that are there.
These are just draft questions again, so just to react to, and we're going to refine them and change them. I just wanted to capture that. I'll just say it again. These are just drafted questions. It's again just a super messy draft question that was said about the qualities and characteristics, just to throw it up there so we don't lose it, along with the other things. What I'm going to say now is let's move to the posters so that we can give the feedback on the agenda about some of these things so everybody gets a chance to think about it. I have markers here. And if you're online, Ira, I'm not sure if there's a way to just capture some of those questions there so that people online can participate too. Can we have one person from the group kind of summarize what you were saying? How about that? And I'll just hand this microphone. All right, here we go.
Okay, what we liked about the agenda and the questions is the timing of the meetings, that evening time, and that food and childcare would be offered. We liked that there would be breakout groups for people to be able to discuss openly while we take notes. We like the offering of 2 different locations in different parts of the city, and we like the addition of that superintendent question. It would be even better if we offered breakout groups separately in Spanish and English so that those discussions people could really express themselves as accurately as they want. We do think that they should be 2 different dates instead of the same date so that we have enough people at each one as far as our manpower. Add questions about attendance and communication around that, we thought, because one of the superintendent's goals was around attendance, and we think asking families about, are you aware of the attendance policy? Was that communicated? What do you think about it? How does it impact you? Whatever. We think it'd be better if we offered some kind of transportation to get there, or ride shares or something. Questions, comments. How are you going to get people to go? What's the messaging? What's the hook? Why should people go? We do think in getting out the word about the meetings, we really need to use all resources, like the school FACE coordinators, the PTOs, community-based organizations like the Y, the Boys and Girls Club, Enlace de Familia, Holyoke Media, and the radio, the news.
So we were brief in the what works. I think we just thought that the outlook of the agenda worked, including a lot of what Anna mentioned. So I think that even better, I think we talked about having a definition of what is the role of the superintendent. I think there's often a sense that we have no idea what the superintendent is supposed to do, like what should we expect from them. So I think some sort of a definition, job description maybe, of like what is the role of the superintendent, because then we can have sort of educated decisions about what are the characteristics we want. We wanted a question or something about like how do the goals respond to the school district's mission. So again, thinking about like we have some goals that the superintendent laid out for themselves, but how do those then tie back to the school district's mission? So for example, we noticed there was nothing on there about bilingual education, even though that's something that the district touts, or there was nothing on there about socio-emotional learning or socio-emotional health, which is something, again, that the district says, or anti-racism. So just things like that. So just how do the goals tie to that? And then we thought about adding a couple things. So thinking about the top 3 qualities that matter to you, and we really thought, and this was sort of a comment, is just thinking about some of these questions about what do you think? Just giving people like a number of responses, just like, so you can't spend an hour talking about it, just like 1, 2, 3, these are my top 3 priorities. Again, like give us the top 3 qualities you believe your superintendent has, and then just really making sure that we ask short and straight questions. And then we thought we should combine questions 2 and 3, and then again, just limit your responses 3 things as opposed to.
All right, for what works, we said we really like the idea of having folks in this group be facilitators for each of the small little breakout rooms. And we really like that there's the opportunity for small groups so people can be heard and that food and childcare is being provided. We thought even better if we could commit to making sure there's at least one person in each of those breakout groups who is fluent in Spanish. And it was also brought up that not just focusing on Spanish, that the Haitian population in Holyoke, having at least one person there who can interpret for them. We thought about the possibility for kind of recruiting for this group from these meetings. If parents come and they're really passionate, saying, hey, why don't you come on board? And to echo what Anna's group said, just leveraging a lot of ways to get the word out there. And then for question and comments, we said we thought about involving people who can't make it. Right, like after the fact, not before the fact, but after the fact, there's a way we can solicit responses to these questions from people who couldn't be there. We really kind of talked about changing that April vacation date, and we went back and forth about how many people we know who just won't be around. And then we thought about a space for the people who do show up, if there's a place for them to put questions or comments that didn't get addressed in the meeting.
Ira, are you able to share, is someone from your group?
Yeah, I'll share out.
Go. Yep.
If that's okay. So, first of all, I applaud you because yes, we have more than 2 languages within our district. So making sure we have individuals who can assist all who come. I think we just didn't want it to be a kind of bashing. We want it to be a focused thing. So one of the is, do you feel comfortable communicating with your child's teachers? And then we also brought up, have we considered transportation to the forums? And will they be streamed live? Are they going to be Zoomed? And can there be an email address set up so that those who weren't in person can share their comments or suggestions using that tool? I think for number 2, we can focus it to what are some successes that we can build upon. And just like someone else said, focusing on the top 3 of like things we can do better or, making sure we get all that information. We had a couple other like subtopics kind of like, are the schools being transparent when communicating with parents and students? That was, because I think Miguel had brought it up earlier, Emma had written that there are some things that are going on that is not being shared or discussed. We didn't have it broken out in the same way because we were here, but hopefully that was helpful.
Ellie, did you mention transportation to the forums?
Yes, I think I did. Yeah, we want the same thing we thought of. Emma had brought up that with the rezoning, when they did the transportation, the buses were full. And this might be another opportunity, to support those wanting to engage, but might not be able to get there.
Thank you so much, Ellie. All right, so you all, I said we would end on time and we're a little bit late for this. I do want to share what our next steps are going to be. I did put in the slides, and the slides are in the agenda, and we will share this out. Some of the details that Mildred was sharing about the goals and the timeline for this, just so you all have that information. So we'll make sure you have that. All right, so I'm going to say let's pause on the dates. It sounds like we're going to revisit what those dates are, and Eric and I will send out a communication with some other proposals there. I'm going to take the feedback that you've provided and work it into the agendas and send out that draft agenda so you can see the revised questions and what that agenda looks like. And then we'll get those dates confirmed, as well as we'll start to think about an outreach plan for community engagement to make sure that we're able to pull people in. Yes.
In terms of spreading the word, do you think someone could just draft a couple sentence kind of blurb that we could just pull from to put out there so we're all saying the same thing?
Absolutely.
Like, okay.
And great suggestion from the group in the back about cascading communication and making sure that we're getting it to, maybe that was a group in the front, to multiple people saying that cascaded communication. You all, thank you so much for your time, for welcoming me to your space. I'm going to stick around for a minute if there's anything else that comes up for you. Thank you, Mildred.
Thank you, Mildred.
You all are amazing. Thank you.